This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Who else can it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Continued coverage, wall-to-wall coverage of the 2015 NFL Scouting Combine. We are now in day number 3. Defensive line and linebackers. Thought this was going to be a very exciting day. I thought it was going to be a day that generated a lot of buzz. Day 2 was filled with drama and excitement. Devontae Parker and Kevin White in their 40s. You had Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota throwing at the combine. There's a lot of buzz generated after day number 2. I thought day 3 with Leonard Williams and all of the pass rushers coming out in this draft, I thought it was really going to generate a lot of buzz, much like day number 2. But sadly, day 3 did not live up to the expectations of many, including myself. And we'll talk about a couple of guys that did help themselves tremendously in day number 3, one in particular. But let's jump into the defensive line first. And one of the key guys in this draft, Eddie Goldman, not able to go at the combine dealing with an injury. So one of the big defensive linemen in this draft wasn't able to participate. But for the guys that were there, we start with Eric Armstead, 6'7", 292-pound Oregon defensive lineman, by far the biggest defensive lineman in this draft at 6'7". This is a big man, as you can tell. He ran a 5'1", 40. Again, when you're talking about defensive lineman, offensive lineman, anybody in the trenches, you don't really care about the 40 time. You only care about the 10-second split. His was 1.76, so that's a good time for a guy that size. Because you're looking to see that get off. You're looking for explosion there. You're looking for guys to get out of the blocks cleanly, because that's much like how they're going to be lining up, or at least close to it, comparable to their three-point stance that they're going to be in, trying to rush after the quarterback and get after the ball carrier. So you want to really pay attention to the 10-second split. Thought he showed really solid movement again. His biggest thing is he's going to have to be able to stay down. He has a weird stance that he has. They call it a frog stance that he uses when he plays in the game. So that helps him stay down. Again, when you're 6'7", you're going to be most likely the tallest guy on the field, or at least one of the tallest guys on the field each and every single time you step on the field. So it's going to be a task for him to stay down. Thought he did an okay job of staying down, but at times you can tell he gets up high with that 6'7" frame. But again, came out and competed, he checked off boxes, showed his athleticism, and showed why he's going to be a first-round pick, most likely in the 2015 NFL Draft. You look at the star of the show, much like Kevin White in day number 2, Vic Beasley was the standout of day number 3. He wowed people, and this is the thing you have to remember. For a lot of these coaches and general managers, this is their first time being exposed to these players. You got scouts, area scouts all around the country who report on these guys and report back to the organization, and so they have eyes on these players at all times. But again, these coaches, these general managers, these positional coaches, they've been preoccupied with the team the entire season. They don't have time to worry about college players. So this is their first time being exposed to a lot of these players. And so you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and what a first impression Vic Beasley made. He put on weight. That was one of the questions for him coming into this draft was, is he going to be able to fill out his frame well enough? Is he going to be able to stand up at the point of attack in the run game? Because we were hearing he was every bit of 230, maybe 235, 220. It was his playing weight last year, 220 something. So teams were a little anxious about Vic Beasley. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. And looking at him coming to the combine, weighing in at 246 pounds, that was great for him. Now the question became, okay, So how are you carrying that weight? Well, not only did he show that, hey, this is pure muscle. I worked hard for this by repping 35 reps of 2 1/4 on the bench, which is tremendous for a guy his size. Hell, tremendous for anybody, let alone a guy his size is 6'3", 246 pounds. But he came out and blazed it on the 40 with a 4.53 40 and a 1.59 10-second split, which are both dynamic and explosive numbers for a guy his size. Then he followed that up with arguably one of the craziest and cartoonish type numbers on the broad and the vertical. I think he vertically 43 inches or something asinine like that, and then dropped to like 11.4 on the broad. It's just ridiculous numbers for a guy, and so he's elevated his status. He came out, I thought he looked good in the positional drills. He just basically solidified his spot as a first-round pick. Now, will he be, toward the top of the first round, back half, middle of the road? He's definitely a first-round pick. There were rumblings and grumblings as to whether he'd be able to sneak into the back half of the first round. He's definitely a first-round pick, and he was the buzz. He was the talk of the combine in day number 3. Vic Beasley made himself some money with his performance at the combine. That's what the combine can do. And again, the tape is his DNA. What he did was he's going to make them take a second look at the tape, and the tape is good. Okay, so what he's going to do is now they're going to ask, can you stand up at the point of attack? Okay, with this weight, is this going to help you be better in the run game? But the guy is a baller, and he showed that at the combine. Vic Beasley was the standout of day number 3. Malcolm Brown, 6'2", 319-pound Texas defensive lineman, ran a 5.05 40, 1.75 10-second split. I thought he came out for his size, showed athleticism. He's going in the first round, and I think there's a lot to like about Malcolm Brown. And I thought that he moved well in the positional drills, went out, showed some versatility, and I think he's another one of these guys that helped himself tremendously with his performance at the combine. Came out, checked off all the boxes. He's going in the first round. He's going in the first round, folks, as he was able to go and enhance his draft stock with his performance. Dante Fowler Jr., here's a guy that Mike Mayock put atop his outside linebackers, or pass rushers as he likes to call it, in this draft. He's number 1 on Mike Mayock's list, which makes everyone take a second look and want to pay extra attention to Dante Fowler Jr. Here's a guy that is 6'3", 261 pounds out of Florida, and the reason Mike Mayock made him his top pass rusher in this draft is because he comes with a good combination of size and explosiveness off the edge, where to Mike Mayock, Vic Beasley, Shane Ray, and Randy Gregory were all light in the pants and weren't going to be able to stand up at the point of attack in the run game, whereas at 261 pounds, Fowler could stand up at the point of attack in the run game as well as be explosive off the edge. So that combination for Mike Mayock was enough to put Dante Fowler Jr. at the top of his board. So what did he do at the combine? 4.6, 140, 1.59 10-second split. So those are great times for Dante Fowler Jr. Now, the vertical leap and the broad jump didn't quite match up with the explosiveness we saw with the 40. The broad jump was around 32 and a half, the vertical was about 32 and a half, and the broad jump was something like 9 and some change. So it didn't really match up with what we saw from these other guys that were explosive. We saw what Beasley was able to put forth, and even Bud Dupree, who I'll talk about here in a second, what those guys were able to do. So it was a little alarming, and Mike Mayock made mention of that. But again, he went out, and I thought he struggled actually on the field. In the field drills, he was slipping a lot. He had to put his hand down on the ground to keep his balance. I just thought he was pushing and trying way too hard. He wasn't going out there and just letting it come to him. You could tell he was pressing. He wanted to perform well. And I don't think it's any knock on him athletically. I don't think he's a guy that doesn't have balance. I don't think that's the case at all. If you watch the tape, he's a guy that gets it done on the field. I just think he was pressing out there, and you could tell he wasn't being natural out on the field in the positional drills. He wanted to go out there and push it, and he was going too fast, and he was losing his balance quite often. So that's something he'll have to clean up in his pro day. I'm pretty sure he will. And I think he'll be more relaxed. And this is a very stressful situation. They make the combine stressful for a reason. They want to see how these guys play and how they respond in an environment that is foreign to them and very difficult to handle. They make this tough for a reason. They want to see how these guys respond to a little bit of adversity. So I thought he struggled in the on-field drills, ran the 40, and his 10-second split was excellent, but the numbers from his broad jump and vertical weren't all that impressive and didn't really match up to what he did at the 40. But again, came out, competed, checked off some boxes, left a little bit to be desired. We'll see what he does at his pro day. Dante Fowler Jr. is still going to be one of the first pass rushers off the board in this draft. Randy Gregory, here's one of the most intriguing prospects in this draft. 6'5", 235 pounds, out of Nebraska. To me, he scares the living daylights out of me because he reminds me of Deion Jordan. I won't go into in-depth detail here. We'll do that when I start breaking these players down individually. But 4.57 40 with a 1.60 10-second split. So phenomenal numbers for a guy his size, big, long, rangy defender. The thing about him was, you know, the NFL at the combine with the defensive linemen love to see if they can do linebacker drills. So they will put them in what they like to call conversion drills. And these are drills that see, can you make the conversion, the switch from defensive lineman to an outside linebacker if need be? Because teams nowadays got to be flexible. They like the hybrids. They like guys that can stick their hand in the dirt as well as take it out of the dirt, you know, maybe drop it to coverage and do a couple of things that way. So Randy Gregory, absolutely going to be an outside linebacker. There's no doubt. It actually was a farce that he actually ran with the defensive line. And same with Vic Beasley. These aren't going to be defensive ends. These are going to be outside linebackers. So the fact that they ran with the defensive line was somewhat head-scratching, even though that was their classification in college. We all know what they're going to be at the next level. But Randy Gregory, he should have just ran with the linebackers because he definitely looked comfortable in the linebacker conversion drills. I thought he excelled in that where a lot of these guys struggled. He went out there, looked fluid, changed direction, was awesome. You could tell he's natural in that sense, and that's something that he's going to have to continue to work at. They said he lost some weight because he had gotten sick, because 235 isn't going to cut it. He's going to need to put on some more weight. And you heard people talking about, hey, this guy can probably stand to put on another 15 to 20 pounds, which if he does, that'll be excellent for him. Can he continue to be explosive and dynamic as an athlete with that kind of weight added to his frame? That shall remain to be seen, but he looked good in the conversion drills, and that was something that I wanted to see, and he definitely checked off all of those boxes. Randy Gregory came out and did exactly what he needed to do to ensure that he will be one of those top picks in this draft. Here's another guy, and I want you to start paying attention to this name right here. Eli Harold, 6'3", 247-pound defender out of the University of Virginia. Look, a lot of teams are looking for pass rushing help. In this league, if you can't get to the quarterback, you are in a lot of trouble. Now, everybody wants to talk about Vic Beasley, Shane Ray, Randy Gregory, Dante Fowler Jr. You know, everybody wants to talk about Bud Dupree and those guys. Everyone's not getting their hands on one of those 5 guys, okay? You need to start looking at alternate options. And here's one right here that I thought did some big things in this combine, and that's Eli Harold. Here's a guy, great production at Virginia, and I thought he came out, ran the 40 in a 4.53 and a 10-second split of 1.56. That's tremendous, okay? And one of the fastest times at this combine for the defensive line, and really he's an outside linebacker. Again, one of these guys that should have been with the linebackers, but because of his designation in college as a defensive end, that's where he ended up running with that group at the combine. But I tell you what, this is an outside linebacker, and when they went to the conversion drills, I didn't think there was a better player that participated in the conversion drills on the defensive line than Eli Harold. He was even better than Randy Gregory to me. He was very comfortable. I mean, changed directions. You could tell, and Mike Mayock actually made mention of this, you could tell he's done this at the college level. He was one of the few that actually caught the football, looked natural when he caught the football as well, and he didn't have to stop. A lot of these guys have to stop to try to catch it. He just caught it, kept running, and he just looked fluid and natural in his coverage drop. This is a guy you need to pay attention to, because not only can he get pressure on the quarterback, but he can also drop into coverage. I think Eli Harold really made a name for himself. And if you didn't know who he was before, gotta go put the tape on. A lot of these teams are going to start investigating Eli Harold, because I think there's a lot there and there's some potential. He showed out well, and I think he really helped his draft stock at the combine, did Eli Harold. Here's one of the guys that I thought actually did a magnificent job at the combine. I have had no clue who he was. I can't wait to watch the tape, because they got me salivating over this guy. Owambe Odigizua, okay? From now on, we're gonna call him Double O, okay? Owambe Odigizua out of UCLA, 6'3", 267 pounds. The man is chiseled, he's cut, love his frame. And he came out and he ran a 4.64 40 and a 1.63 10-second split. So he is explosive. And he was flying. And I thought he looked good in the on-the-field drills. I thought he moved well. Everything looked the part of a guy that has the ability to come in and wreak havoc in the National Football League. And again, another one of these guys that if you didn't know who he was before, he put himself on the map with his performance at the combine. And so I'm definitely intrigued. I can't wait to watch the tape, because Double O went out and performed at an extremely high level. Thought he was another one of those huge winners of day number 3 at the combine. Again, another guy that helped his draft stock tremendously with his performance. Owambe Odigizua out of UCLA. Jordan Phillips, 6'5", 329 pounds, Oklahoma Sooner defender, 5'20", 41.84 split, 10-second split. I thought he came out, showed the athleticism for his size. He was moving out there, and you can tell he's another one of these guys going to come off the board relatively quick because of the things that he can do on the interior of the defensive line. So another guy came in, checked off all the boxes, going to be a relatively high draft choice in this draft. Okay, now we get to the big boys along the defensive line. And these are real defensive linemen, not like Vic Beasley, not like Randy Gregory, not like Eli Harold, who are not real true defensive linemen. And these are the guys that everybody is salivating over along the defensive line. We start with Danny Shelton, 6'2", 339-pound defensive tackle out of the University of Washington. Ran a 5'6", 640. Again, no one cares about that 40 time. What we're looking at is the 10-second split. 188 is the 10-second split. And again, for a guy that size, this is a massive man we're talking about. To keep it under 1.9 is a tremendous time for him. And you can see the short area quickness in the drills. I mean, he was dynamite in the bag drills, and when he was weaving in and out, keeping his head up. And you can just tell that this guy, he gets it, he has it, and his movement skills are way above functional. This is a scary guy here, and the fact that he played so many snaps at the University of Washington speaks volumes as to his conditioning and his ability to kind of gauge where he needs to be at different points of the game. And he didn't take plays off, and I just love everything I saw about Danny Shelton. And he was having fun out there, and he's a guy that you want on your team. It's funny because I didn't know if he was worthy before this process started. And you heard his name mentioned as a top 5 pick potentially. I think this guy is legit. I think he's worthy of a top 5 pick I can't wait to watch more tape on him, but just looking at him at the combine and looking at some of the things he was able to do, I was surprised at his movement skills, how light he looked on his feet at times, and his lower body is absolutely ridiculous. This guy helped himself at the combine, came out, competed, checked all the boxes, did what it was he needed to do to solidify himself as a potential top 5 pick in this draft. And this was the guy that everybody came to see along the defensive line. Leonard Williams, 6'5", 302-pound defender out of USC. Ran a 4.97 40 and a 1.72 10-second split. So he showed some explosion there. And I thought the drill that really showed some of his traits, and one of the biggest ones, was the stack and shed drill, where you hit the bag, you shed, hit the bag, you hit the pad on the ground. The stack and shed drill, the first person up holding the bag was Shane Ray, and he couldn't participate, but he did hold the bag. And Leonard Williams chucked him on that stack and shed drill. And a lot of these guys they tell you, we want to see technique, we want to see power, we want to see you get that base down, hips down, explode through your legs. And he did that on that first initial burst, and he knocked Shane Ray back, and everybody was laughing, Shane Ray was laughing. And Shane Ray said, all right, second time around, you're not gonna get me. You could tell he kind of put his weight behind the bag so he wouldn't get blown back, and you saw the power there. And they had a change of direction drill where he tells you where to go, brings you up, then sends you back at an angle. And he just changes direction so fluidly. He was even in a back pedal, and it all looked smooth. This guy is just an absolute freak. And for anybody that thinks he's not going to be the first guy off the board non-quarterback, you're sadly mistaken. And I think he just solidified that at the combine, did Leonard Williams. Those are your defensive linemen. And you slide in Mario Edwards Jr. real quick, 6'3" defender, 279 pounds out of Florida State. Thought he was solid. 4.79 40, 1.72 10-second split. Went out and showed some functional movement skills. He was the other guy along that defensive line in the interior next to Eddie Goldman. So again, another one of these guys from Florida State. It seemed like the whole team was there from Florida State. Same thing with Clemson, just a lot of guys there. And I think he went out and performed, checked some boxes, and did some things that maybe helped enhance his draft stock. You go on to the linebackers, and this was a very underwhelming group. I almost felt as bad about what I saw. And again, I always like to take everything with a grain of salt. I keep things in perspective, because I told you this the very first day of the combine. Don't overvalue what you see at the combine. And I've learned the hard way, because I was one of those guys back in the day that used to take what I saw at the combine at face value, and I used to put a lot of stock into it, and it'll get you into trouble, because looking at guys at the combine, and again, this is a very stressful situation on purpose, looking at guys perform at the combine can mislead you, and it can definitely close your eyes and allow you to miss out the golden opportunity to get yourself a quality football player, because you see him not at his best at the combine. You may think, oh, this guy isn't as good, and you don't take him in the draft. You have an opportunity to get him, and he turns out to be a gem. And so looking at these linebackers, I don't want to overreact, because nobody really stood out in this group. There was one or two guys that actually did some things that, could lead you to believe that they could be studs at the next level, but I was expecting a lot more out of this group, and I liken it to the tight ends. Just really not a lot here in terms of, guys getting it done at the combine. Now, the tape says something else. The DNA says something else, but at the combine, these guys were very disappointing, to say the least. Let's jump into them. Stephon Anthony, 6'3", 243-pound defender out of Clemson, 4.59 40, 1.57 10-second split. So that's explosion, folks, right there. I thought he moved solidly in the positional drills. I didn't think he knocked my socks off with his movement skills, but this is a downhill thumper. And for him to run as fast as he did, I thought that was impressive for Stephon Anthony, and I thought he helped himself with just the 40 time that he put forth in showing some explosiveness for a guy that gets into the play and gets physical and nasty when he's coming downhill to make tackles on ball carriers. Paul Dawson was a guy that Mike Mayock, and to me, Paul Dawson was the first guy that Mike Mayock has banged the table for this weekend as his #1 guy at the position that didn't come through for him. We saw Kevin White come through for him. I thought that even though Dante Fowler didn't impress with the broad jump and the vertical, I thought he looked solid again. Thought he struggled in the positional drills a bit, but he showed the explosiveness with his 40 time and his 10-second split. And you can see the athleticism. Don't let the slipping and having to put his hand down fool you in the positional drills. There's athleticism oozing out of every nook and cranny of Dante Fowler Jr. And I think he did enough to show why Mike Mayock has him at the top of his pass rushers. But at the linebacker position, Paul Dawson was at the top of Mike Mayock's board. And I thought that he really disappointed Mike. And Mike kind of voiced it during the telecast. 6 foot, 235 pound defender out of TCU, 4'9", 40. Ouch. Again, he's not an overly big guy at 6 feet, 235. You hit 235, you're expecting this guy to fly, okay? And for him to run a 4'9", 40 and a 169 10-second split, I mean, you got some, tight ends and some offensive linemen that, were challenging him in terms of 10-second split and even the 40. I mean, Ali Marpet, he ran a 4.97 or something like that, and his 10-second split was like 172. So, I mean, you're talking about offensive lineman that was challenging on this guy. So, look, at the end of the day, Paul Dawson is going to have to tighten that up because that was very disappointing, and it didn't match up what you saw on tape. And so he's going to have to improve that time at his pro day. I didn't think he looked great in the positional drills. I thought he looked sluggish there as well. I just don't think it was a really overall good day for Paul Dawson, and it definitely didn't do anything to help his draft stock. He's going to have to show out at his pro day and improve on every single thing that he did at the combine on day number 3. Bud Dupree, he's a guy that Mike Mayock has as his #5 pass rusher in this draft. High production at Kentucky, 6'4", 269 pounds, 4'5", 40, 1.6 flat, 10-second split. So you saw the explosiveness there. He actually hurt himself. His second 40 was something ridiculous, like 4.73 or something like that, where you run a 4.57, that's a big disparity. But he actually injured himself on that second 40, so you go ahead and throw that one out of the window. He didn't do anything else after that 40 because of the injury. So no, positional drills or on the field drills. So we really didn't get to see the full Bud Dupree experience. We didn't get to have that, but for him to run, show the explosiveness, then he vertical leaped 42 inches and the broad jump was 11 and some change. So he showed explosiveness across the board in the limited drills that he was able to participate in. So Bud Dupree didn't hurt himself, and I think he definitely helped himself because he can rest on that 40. He didn't have to run that again at his pro day. He doesn't have to vertical, don't have to do any of those things because he did it at the combine. Now he just got to go out and do positional drills when his pro day comes around. So I think he really did some good things to help improve his status, and I think even though he sustained an injury, I think he's taking care of the biggest part of that equation, which was showing the speed and the explosiveness. But Dupree took care of that at the combine. But Benerick McKinney, and Benerick McKinney is one of these downhill thumpers, again, 6'4", 246 pounds out of Mississippi State, that you don't necessarily expect him to be a blazer, but his first 40 time was ridiculous, something like 4.79, 4.81, something like that. So he really needed to improve upon that in his second 40. I think his first one was like 4.76 or something like that. Get out of the 4.7s, man. If you're a linebacker and you want me to take you seriously, get out of the 4.7s. Get somewhere in the 4.6 range and do that. And so 4.69, 1.64, 10-second split. I'll take it because he's a downhill thumper. He's a physical linebacker. And again, one of these guys that I'm not going to allow the combine to dissuade me as to what kind of football player he is. Same thing with the next guy that I'm going to talk about. We think we know who these guys are. We think they're going to be good football players, but They didn't show it athletically at the combine. I thought he struggled in the positional drills. I thought he did not show quickness, didn't show great change of direction, but I think he's one of these guys that really relies heavily on instincts and his ability to diagnose plays quickly and get to the football. Same with the next guy, let's jump into him. Denzel Perryman out of the University of Miami. 5'11", 236-pound defender. So again, low center of gravity, built low to the ground, and at 236 pounds, you're expecting this guy to fly. And if you watch the tape, you know why we thought he was going to come out and just, you know, absolutely run a 4.57 or 4.63. He ran a 4.81, and that's very disappointing. And 1.69, 10-second split. Really not that explosive either. And so when you looked at that and you looked at the tape, it just didn't mesh. Then he goes out on the on-field drills and he was all over the place. And again, another one of these guys that struggled at the combine, but the tape says something else. So I'm not going to overreact, but that wasn't a big-time performance for Denzel Perryman, nor Benaric McKinney. Both of these guys who I think have some really good tapes. And throw Paul Dawson in there as well. Another guy with great tape that just didn't really get it done at the combine. So pro days are going to be extremely important, of high value to those three players in particular. Shaq Thompson, 6 foot, 228-pound linebacker out of Washington. Now, Mike Mayock has him listed as a safety because at 228 pounds, you just can't see him being a viable threat as a linebacker in this league. We saw one of the Florida State defenders last year come out and be very light in the pants, and he actually played linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. So you said, okay, well, it's been done before. We've seen guys make that transition, but at 228 pounds, the guy that Tevin Smith last year that was out of Florida State that was drafted by Jacksonville, he ran a 4.7 in a 40-yard dash when the dude was flying. So, you know, you could justify that maybe. Here, Shaq Thompson ran a 4.72, which is yucky. As a safety, if you're going to make that conversion, 1.78. Now, you know, not all safeties are blazing fast, but 4.72 didn't do himself any favors in that department. But you look at him at 228 pounds, something's going to have to be done. Can't survive in this league with that kind. And again, with teams having to play nickel a lot more, dime a lot more, guys like him come and they have a place on the field now in nickel and dime sets. So there's going to be a place for him on the field, whether it's in a linebacker capacity or a safety capacity. But I thought he looked good. He looked natural in the on-the-field drills. He looked like a guy that could easily make a conversion to a safety. He's got the kind of movement skills that would require him to be able to do the things that he did well on the on-field drill. So, you know what? I felt good about what I saw. I just didn't like the 40 time. I didn't like the lack of explosion there. But we'll see what happens with him moving forward. I thought he looked good in the on-field drills. The 40 time just wasn't a big boost for him on this particular day. Eric Kendricks was a guy that I was probably the most impressed with of this group. And that's not saying a lot because this group was very underwhelming. And really the reason this group was so underwhelming is because you took the best players out of this group necessarily and you made them defensive linemen. If Vic Beasley was with this group, if Shane Ray was with this group, if Randy Gregory was with this group, if Eli Harold was with this group, it would seem a lot different, but they weren't. They were with the defensive line. But Eric Kendricks, you know, UCLA defender, 6 feet, 232 pounds, 4.66 40, 1.64 10-second split. Thought he came out, showed a little bit of explosion, a little bit of athleticism, and I thought his change of direction in the on-field drills was tremendous. I thought he helped himself by showing his range, his ability to flip his hips, get low, and you know, show the change of direction and get in and out of his cuts quickly and smoothly and fluidly. And I thought he did all of those things exceptionally well. I thought he helped himself. If you're going to be 232 pounds, if you're going to be light, I need you to show the ability to run, because if you're 232 pounds, if he doesn't put on any more weight, and maybe he will, you're going to have to run with these tight ends. You're going to have to be a guy that can cover in space. He looks to be the part. And so I thought Eric Kendricks helped himself in day 3 of the combine. And so that is day 3 in a nutshell. Guys came out, competed, which is what I like to see. But thought that the linebackers were very disappointing as a whole. But I tell you what, Leonard Williams showed up and showed why he's going to be the first non-quarterback off the board. I thought that Danny Shelton solidified himself as a potential top 5 pick, definitely a top 10 pick for sure. And I thought Vic Beasley elevated his draft stock tremendously with his performance. I think Randy Gregory helped himself. Eli Harold helped himself as well. And I think Dante Fowler opened some eyes as well. So a lot of guys helped their draft stock. I think some guys, though, have to do some serious work at their pro days to solidify their place in the 2015 NFL Draft. And that's going to do it for day 3 of the Combine. We've got one final day left. We'll break it down today. That's going to be the defensive backs, corners, safeties. Should be a lot of fun. A lot of guys coming into this draft looking to help some teams right away. So we'll be back to break down day number 4, the final day of the 2015 NFL Scouting Combine. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. See you tomorrow. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.